Jesus prophesied to us that the end of the world would see great storms, and we've just seen a category 3 off Ireland for the first time, a hurricane. Now Irma was the second biggest, I think, on record, and we've been seeing super hurricanes, super typhoons over the Philippines just the last couple of years. So what is going on then with the weather? And if the sea and the waves are going to roar, this is what Jesus said would happen in the last days, the sea and the waves roaring after the Jews repossessed Jerusalem, which happened in 1948, and then in 1967, of course, the rebellion against the Jewish people there from Palestine, and so the Jews repossessed in the 6 days. The thing is, right, with the prophecies come true, it's amazing when the Bible even goes down to the detail about North Korea. So it says the kings of the East, the way of the kings of the East being prepared. Is that not astonishing? That Armageddon would involve this war, this final battle, this final war would involve North Korea, because it says the way of the kings of the East being prepared, Revelation chapter 16. Now when it says they spat out fire and brimstone and smoke, that they had the faces of the man in it, and it says it came out of the pit, and aeroplanes come from the steel, which produces smoke, and the pit produces the metal which they make aeroplanes from. Now I got the time wrong for the end of the world battle. My last 20 videos or whatever, 30 hours of preaching, I can't believe I got the date wrong like I did, but I was ill at the time. So when it says 376, I got that wrong, because it's actually 396 days or 396 years from Cromwell. I mean, if you add up and do the maths, you can see where I went wrong, because one day it represents 1 year, sure. Ezekiel 4 and verse 6 says that. God says, 1 day shall be for a year to you. Okay? Now, 1 day is a year. So, when it says, you know, for 490 days, or 70 weeks in Daniel, from the time of the building of the walls to the time of the Messiah, when he'd be cut off, that is, crucified for our sins or suffer capital punishment at the hands of a judge. When it says that, then we have to remember what the Bible's teaching, that the 490 years isn't. Somebody died there, look. It's terrible, isn't it? Went too fast, I expect. 490 days is 490 years from Artaxerxes to the end, you know, which is when Christ would die, making the end of sins. Do you know, it says that should be careful by him, innit? So Artaxerxes, from him, that we read about him in archaeology, and that to the end of the world, or the end of their world, the prophecy of the Messiah coming, the time would be fulfilled with Jesus, because it says when the Messiah would come, Daniel 9 verse 24 to 27, that the Mashiach would come, and it says that Kodesh, he would be godly, holy. He would not die for his own sins because he's holy, but he would die for the sins of the world. So when we hear about in the scriptures that in the scriptures it says that he is holy, he is righteous, he would die for the sins of the world. Same as Psalm 22, isn't it? He says that he pierced my hands and my feet, which is a prophecy of Jesus. And anyway, it also says, the last verse of Psalm 22, that he will declare unto his brethren, you know, that he has done this. The last words are, done this. Jesus on the cross says, it is finished. Yeah, and notice in Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24, and that it says, when he shall have accomplished and made an end of sins. Now, the thing is that the daily sacrifice would be taken away, but the thing is, when you hear about 300, I'll go back to 376, it's not, it's 396. Why? Because when you look at the prophecy given there, it was a day, a year, a month. See, the month and the hour. That's where I went wrong. You got to add the 30 days from that to it. So anyway, the reason why I was calculating that is because when it describes in the Bible the time of the preparation of the spitting out fire, brimstone and smoke, I took that as from, because it has to come to the time of the wings, you know, with a man's face and they spat out fire, brimstone and smoke. It's a flying thing, which I take from the First World War, around about there, you know. So aeroplanes were actually used before the First World War, but the thing is, we can only get an approximate date for the end of the world battle, the Armageddon and that. So if you think about it, the prophecies given in the Bible, it's quite important to remember the 376 ties in with the 150. If we go from the time of Cromwell, so Cromwell was a change in politics. The kings under Cromwell had power before Cromwell to you know, run the countries around the world. So like since the Old Testament times, you know, when David and Saul and that were kings in Israel. Now God was always in charge then. He was the governor of Israel, in charge of it, and he raised up the leaders, but people wanted to choose their own kings, and God sent them a sign, didn't he, against the people, how he was unhappy about their rejection of him choosing the leaders for them by sending hail and thunder and lightning storm. Samuel showed the people how they rejected God as their leader. Anyway, the thing is, the sign of the end of the world would be storms, increasing storms, which we're seeing now. And the sea and the waves roaring, Jesus said will happen after the Jews repossessed Jerusalem. There'll be signs of the sun and the moon and the stars. You know, there was a sign of the sun, he went red the other day. I filmed that, that's my last video. And apparently the Sahara Desert and fires and the hurricane, the category 3 hurricane off Spain whipped up the smoke which made the sun go red here in Britain. It went pinky red, it was amazing. And the signs of the sun, the moon and the stars, Jesus said would happen. We saw a sign in the moon recently. We had an eclipse here across America, and the moon went blood red, you know. Well, not blood red, but like an orange, which was a bit unusual. So when you talk about these things happening, then it makes you wonder what's going on, and how is it that the kings of the East, the way the kings of the East being prepared, is so accurate in mentioned in the Bible. So there's a threat not just from North Korea, but from kings plural. It would be a threat. Now if you take it as being not 2019 but 2039, you've got to add 20 years, because that's where I went wrong in my latest videos. It'd be 2039 would be 396. Okay, days or years. You have to always, a day is always a year prophetical. That's why the 1277 days is 3.5 years. Now, that being the case, that's when the two prophets were lying dead in the street, which I believe was the Old and New Testaments kept in Latin for that time, from Constantine first, the first Pope they call him, don't they? 325, until Martin Luther, which was 1400 and say 80 or something, when he hammered his 95 thesis. Now I think that ties in, that particular prophecy and word, with Daniel chapter 9. What does it say in Daniel? Right, it all ties in with the last chapter, I mean chapter 12, last verse, when it says, blessed are those who come to the 1334. So if you was to add 60 years on, I don't think it's because of a calendar difference, okay? If you added the 1000, okay, the 60 years on that, 1277, you'd come to, you know, an approximate date. So anyway, what am I talking about? Yeah, I was talking about the time given for the end of the world Armageddon battle. And it seems to me that was 20 years out in my last videos, because it's actually 1000, never mind that, the 396. So 396 years, not 376. So 2019 should be 2039 from Cromwell, which is his battle against the king, and he established parliament and democracy, and I'm on about the change from kings to democracy there. So if you add that nearly 400 years, it takes us up to the end of the world battle, the preparation being that. And that kind of ties in with the 150 years, because when it says for 5 months they spat out 5 months, the winged thing. Well, when you think about the winged creature, which had a face of a man in it, a breastplate of iron,